Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. There are some remaining mysteries when it comes to covering Donald Trump. Things like how and when the war with Iran will end, and will America be any safer? Or what is the extent of the crypto grift? Or for that matter, what is the extent of the Trump family's ties to Mideast governments and those governments' investment arms? Or this one, what is the actual health of the president outside of a Ronnie Jackson or White House administered physical? Those are real, actual mysteries. But the facts around Russia's 2016 election interference are not one of those mysteries. Robert Mueller examined Russia's attack on our 2016 presidential election. Then at Donald Trump's behest, John Durham rushed in to investigate the investigators and found the investigators in the investigation into Russia and any potential ties to Donald Trump's 2016 campaign was properly and adequately predicated. Then the DOJ Inspector General did the same thing. Mr. Horowitz, he found the same thing. The investigation was properly predicated. For his part, Senator Marco Rubio, who was then the top senator on the Republican side on the Intelligence Committee, did an even deeper investigation in some aspects and found the very same thing. So, color us deeply skeptical of the purpose of Donald Trump's latest political retribution campaign being run out of the Justice Department, the so-called grand conspiracy case, as detailed by White House spokesgal Caroline Leavitt.
While publicly pretending to engage in a peaceful transfer of power, in private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump in an effort to try to delegitimize his victory before he even took the oath of office.
It's an amazing chart, and the more you look at it, the more questions you have, the more mysteries surround these people. But our colleague, former CIA director, and now MS Now national security analyst John Brennan, finds himself in the political crosshairs of this probe, as we reported here yesterday. There's brand new reporting today from our colleagues Carol Leonnig and Lisa Rubin that reveals that the Justice Department is now pulling back. They are withdrawing the subpoenas that were issued in the investigation into Director Brennan over the weekend. Those subpoenas were for former government officials and some CIA personnel. They were to be questioned before a grand jury in Washington, D.C. But now, with a brand new prosecutor in charge of the case, former Trump lawyer and election denier Joe diGenova, DOJ reportedly wants a little more time to, I don't know what, prepare, workshop their conspiracy theories. We know that the veteran prosecutor who was overseeing this case inside the government, Maria Medeiros Long, was ousted from the case after she told her bosses that there was not enough evidence, there were not enough facts to bring any criminal charges against John Brennan. But DOJ needs a story, and so they are saying that it is, quote, routine practice to reassign people. We also know that Joe diGenova has had former Director John Brennan in his sights, politically speaking, for a very long time. Here's what he said 7 years ago, back in 2019, when Trump's Attorney General Bill Barr appointed Special Counsel John Durham to look into the origins of the Russia probe.
James Comey, Brennan, and Clapper have said to themselves, which one of us is going to pay the Barr bill? The Barr bill is coming due, and Durham's appointment means that the already occurred meetings between the Attorney General, the CIA Director, and the Director of National Intelligence have now focused on a laser that the core of this conspiracy began with John Brennan and ends with John Brennan in London and D.C. and the Democratic National Committee. This is very serious business, and for the first time, I now believe that some of these guys are going to go to prison.
And if that was true, if they'd done anything wrong, Trump sent his guys in to look high and low for any evidence that anything Joe diGenova said there was true. And if The guys he sent in missed it. There were more guys behind him and more guys behind him, up to and including Marco Rubio, who's now in such good standing in MAGA world. He has like 4 titles. I think he's at least the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. He found nothing. He found nothing on John Brennan. And as we said already, the Durham probe, which went in to investigate the Russia probe, ended without any significant indictments. It yielded one conviction of an FBI lawyer who pleaded guilty and served no jail time. And again, neither Mueller nor Marco Rubio's Senate Intelligence Committee investigation into Russian meddling found any wrongdoing, certainly not any criminal wrongdoing, in the predication or the origins of the Russia investigation. But for Team Trump, those facts are irrelevant. They are secondary to the political urgency, which is to fabricate this grand conspiracy. Why now? I don't know. Maybe because Trump's at 35%. Maybe because, as the Wall Street Journal reports, he's scared and bored by the war in Iran. It certainly animates and unites parts of the really fringy right-wing media and many of Donald Trump's allies who are central to holding what's left of the MAGA movement together. Here's just some of what they were saying last year before Trump's political swan dive of the recent few months.
My thing is all roads lead to Russiagate, right? That's right. Where it all started.
Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Brennan and James Clapper, they're in very hot water because of what they did, launching the Russia collusion hoax, raiding Donald Trump's house, and so on and so forth. It turns out that they've hoaxed themselves directly into, well, some real legal trouble.
Bolton and McCabe and Brennan and Comey and Clapper, all you guys are going to spend many, many, many years in a federal prison.
This is where we start today. The former director of the CIA, MS Now National Security Intelligence Analyst John Brennan. Director Brennan, I feel embarrassed. This is ground we have covered so thoroughly on the show, with and without you. But just quickly, because it is a new revelation about what is left inside the Justice Department, that the federal prosecutor in the South Florida office left after she reported up her chain of command that there was not any factual evidence to justify a criminal investigation or prosecution of you. She is now out of the department. Just from the outside looking in, what are we to glean from that about this Department of Justice?
Well, Nicole, I think it just underscores the points you made in your lead, which is that this has been an odyssey over the past 10 years, where Russian interference in the 2016 election has been reviewed. The various actions that were taken by senior officials at that time have been scrutinized over and over and over again. And it's clear that this administration, the Trump administration, wants to continue to try to assert that there was some wrongdoing. And I am quite proud of what we did to uncover and expose Russian interference in that 2016 election, just the way the Russians have attempted to interfere in a lot of elections, not just here in the United States, but abroad. And throughout my career, I worked closely with a lot of individuals in the Department of Justice who had the highest integrity and were really dedicated public servants to try to make sure that the department's name was actually reflected in their actions, the Department of Justice. And speaking to a number of people who have served in the Department of Justice over the years, they're shocked, they're appalled, they're dismayed, they're worried, they're very troubled by what they see happening. And so I am glad that there are individuals, prosecutors, those who are working every day in U.S. attorney offices throughout the country, who take their oath of office seriously and are going to continue to pursue the facts and will not fabricate any type of charges just because their political overseers direct them to do so. And so it's hard for me to understand what's going on right now in the Department of Justice. You know, I leave it to others who are there. But again, I continue to have trust and confidence that the overwhelming number of U.S. attorneys and those who are working in these offices are going to fulfill their obligations with integrity and with the oath of office in their minds in terms of making sure that they're doing what is right and not what is might be politically expedient.